Level 1. The intake. You are 19 years old. The transport bus clears the highway and turns toward a California state prison you have only seen in paperwork. From the road, it looks less like a building than a collection of fences, concrete, razor wire, and towers arranged to make one thing clear. You are not walking back out the way you came in. The bus enters a controlled gate. One barrier locks behind you before the next one moves. For a few seconds, the vehicle is trapped between them. Then the second gate opens. That is the first lesson. Everything in here opens only after something else closes. Inside receiving, they tell you where to stand. Shoes off, clothes off. Turn around, face forward, profile, other side, fingerprints, medical questions, property inventory. Nobody needs your story. They need your information. A staff member hands you state-issued clothes, a thin mattress roll, a towel, basic hygiene supplies, and an identification card with your inmate number printed across it. You stare at the number longer than you mean to. Your name is still technically yours, but the number is what opens doors, signs forms, tracks movement, identifies property, and follows you from building to building. By the time you reach housing, it feels more official than your name does. Your cell is concrete, steel, and almost nothing else. 2 bunks, a toilet, a sink, a narrow shelf, a small window that gives you light, but almost no view. That first night, you stay awake. Not because it is quiet, because it never becomes quiet. A door slams somewhere below. Somebody calls down the tier. A toilet flushes. Keys move. Boots hit concrete. Somebody laughs too loudly. Somewhere farther away, voices rise and then disappear. You keep waiting for the building to settle. It doesn't. During your first week, you start noticing rules nobody gave you during orientation. Certain tables belong to certain people. Certain phones have an order. You don't reach across another man's tray. You don't borrow casually. You don't ask questions just because you're curious. And if somebody offers you something you didn't ask for, you learn to understand what may come attached to it. Nothing inside is really free. Not food. Not favors. Not information. Not protection. By the end of the first month, the door behind you can slam without making your shoulders jump. You think that means you are getting stronger. It doesn't. It means your nervous system has stopped asking whether this place is temporary. Level 2. The Convict. You are 21 now. You have been transferred and placed in general population. The difference is immediate. Receiving was confusion. General population has structure. Your cellmate is a man named Raymond. He is 44 and has already spent more years inside than you spent growing up outside. He does not welcome you. He does not threaten you either. He folds his clothes the same way every morning, keeps his books lined against the wall, wipes the sink after he uses it, and speaks only when there is a reason. On your 4th day together, he points toward the day room. Watch before you move. That's all he says. You do. You watch who sits together, who waits for which phone, who walks the yard alone because they can, and who walks alone because nobody wants them. You notice men separating themselves by race, neighborhood, history, affiliation, and old agreements you were never part of. Outside, a table is furniture. In here, a table can be a boundary. A phone can be a schedule. A seat can be a statement. Raymond never gives you a speech about prison politics. He gives you pieces. Don't interrupt business that isn't yours. Don't make promises because you feel pressure. Don't speak for somebody who didn't ask you to. If you don't know why something is happening, that is usually a reason to stay out of it. You get assigned a prison job cleaning one of the housing areas. The pay is almost meaningless. The job isn't. It gives you movement. Movement gives you observation. And observation gives you the one thing you didn't have when you arrived. Context. You see who people listen to without being told. You see who talks constantly but has no real influence. You see who can stop an argument with 3 words. You see who has to repeat himself. Those are not the same kind of man. At 19, you thought power would be obvious. At 21, you start understanding that the most important power in prison usually isn't announced. You recognize it by what everybody else does when it enters the room. Level 3, the associate. You are 23. You know count times without looking at a clock. You know which commissary items disappear first after store day. You know which officers run every rule exactly as written, and which ones care more about getting through the shift without unnecessary problems. You know when the yard feels normal. More importantly, you know when it doesn't. You still do not belong to anything important, but you are no longer completely outside it either. A man named Salazar begins noticing you. He is older, quiet, and has been inside long enough that younger prisoners change the way they speak when he is close. For weeks, he says almost nothing to you. Then one afternoon, he asks whether a man in another section made it to medical that morning. You answer. The next week, he asks whether commissary arrived on schedule. You answer that too. Later, he asks you to pass a folded note to somebody you are already going to see. Nothing dramatic, no speech, no promise. You deliver it. 2 days later, another note, then a message, then a question. The tasks are small because the task is not really what is being measured. You begin to understand that. Reliability is being measured. Whether you talk too much afterward, whether you add your own interpretation, whether you turn one simple favor into a story that makes you sound important. You don't. That matters. Inside, information has value because movement is limited. A stamped envelope can matter more than its price. A small commissary item can settle a minor debt. A favor can sit unpaid for months. And accurate information, delivered without drama, can make a person useful. That is what you become. Useful. Not powerful. Not protected. Useful. But useful is the first position you have held inside that other men remember. One evening, after you bring Salazar information he had been waiting on, he looks at you for a second and gives one small nod. No thank you. You don't need one. 2 years earlier, people looked through you. Now some of them look for you. You are no longer invisible. If you're still watching, tell me which level you think changes a person the most. And subscribe, because from here on, every step costs more than the one before it. Level 4, the prospect. You are 25. Nobody tells you that you are being evaluated. That would make the evaluation less useful. Instead, the questions change. The situations change. Salazar stops asking only what you know. Now he watches how you react when 2 people give you different versions of the same story. He notices whether pressure makes you talk faster, whether disrespect makes you emotional, whether you can hear something important and wait before repeating it. One afternoon, an argument in the day room starts building. Nothing has happened yet. That is the point. 2 men are talking louder. Other people are beginning to notice. The room is changing. You step between the situation and the next bad decision. You don't threaten anybody. You don't perform. You remind one man of an agreement he already made. You tell the other man the conversation can happen later, when both of them have cooled down. Then you leave them a way to back off without looking weak. They take it. Months later, Salazar sits across from you at a table in a common area. He finally says what has been obvious for some time. There is a structure. There are expectations. There are benefits to standing with people. There are also obligations that do not disappear when the benefits stop being convenient. He explains it without selling it. That is what makes the conversation feel serious. Then he asks one question. You ready to stand with us? You already know there are 2 versions of your life inside. The one before you answer, and the one after. You say yes. The next morning, nothing ceremonial happens. Breakfast comes. Count clears. Doors open. The yard runs. But when you walk out, something has changed. Not in you, around you. People know where you stand now. Soon, you will learn what standing there costs. Level 5. The member. You are 27. Your acceptance is confirmed quietly. A few men had to agree. They did. That is the entire celebration. No speech. No moment where the world pauses. You simply wake up one day with more responsibility than you had the day before. At first, the work sounds manageable. Keep small disputes from becoming large ones. Make sure debts are understood. Carry decisions accurately. Don't improvise rules because you are angry. Don't create problems that somebody above you has to clean up. Then comes the first instruction you wish had gone to somebody else. A man has broken an internal rule. There has to be a response. You are told to handle your part. That night, you lie awake, staring at the underside of the bunk above you. It feels strangely familiar. 8 years earlier, you couldn't sleep because you were afraid of what the prison might do to you. Now you can't sleep because you understand what you have agreed to do for the position you wanted. Morning comes anyway. You carry out the responsibility without turning it into more than it needs to be. Afterward, nobody congratulates you. Nobody asks how you feel. You do not volunteer the answer. That silence becomes part of the job. You finally understand that membership was never the reward. Membership was the contract. The reward was belonging. The price was obligation. And from now on, every time those two things conflict, the structure will remember which one you choose. Level 6. The enforcer. You are 30. Nobody promotes you. There is no official moment. People simply start bringing you different problems. A debt that has been ignored too long. A rule somebody keeps testing. A younger member making choices that could drag everybody around him into unnecessary trouble. Your job is no longer to decide what the structure wants. Your job is to make sure the decision does not remain theoretical. That distinction matters. You learn quickly that the most dangerous person for this role is not always the toughest man. It is the man who enjoys the role too much. Anger makes people sloppy. Ego makes them unpredictable. Unpredictability creates attention. Attention creates pressure. The men above you do not want drama. They want control. So you become controlled. You speak less. You react slower. You stop giving people the satisfaction of knowing what gets under your skin. At night, you tell yourself this is a function, a responsibility, something you put on when required and take off when you close your cell door. You need to believe that, because the alternative is admitting that after enough years, a role you perform every day may stop feeling separate from the person performing it. You tell yourself you still know the difference. You have been telling yourself that for a long time. Level 7. The unit representative. You are 33. You now have influence over an entire housing unit. Not official authority. Something more complicated. 2 men come to you over commissary debt. Each says the other changed the agreement. You do not hear them together. You hear one, then the other. You ask what was promised, when it was promised, and who heard it. Then you make a decision. Neither man loves it, both follow it. That is when you realize you have crossed another line. You used to prove that you could follow decisions. Now people are measuring whether your decisions can be trusted. A new prisoner arrives and immediately starts creating tension. You don't confront him publicly. You learn who he listens to. You speak through the people most likely to reach him. Within days, the problem cools down without becoming an incident. Then a new correctional officer decides to test you in front of the unit. His voice gets louder than necessary. He wants a reaction. You give him almost nothing. You look at him. Behind you, conversations stop. The whole tier becomes quiet. For half a second, the officer is no longer looking only at you. He is listening to 40 other men say nothing. His tone changes. So does yours. Nothing happens. And everybody understands exactly what happened. At 19, Physical readiness kept you alert. At 33, reputation does most of the work before your body has to do anything. You finally understand why consistency matters more than intimidation. Fear has to be renewed. Reputation renews itself. Level 8. The Yard Representative. You are 37. Your world is bigger now. Different housing units feed into the same yard. Different groups carry different histories, different grudges, different rules, and arguments that started years before some of the current men arrived. When those disputes stay small, they are handled locally. When they become too large, they reach you. Your job is not to make everybody like each other. That would be impossible. Your job is to keep predictable problems from turning into unpredictable ones. You hear both sides. You separate rumor from fact. You look for a solution each side can survive without losing standing. Sometimes nobody leaves happy. That is still better than everybody leaving angry. Over time, something strange happens. The yard becomes calmer. Fewer arguments turn into major incidents. Fewer problems require staff intervention. Administrators notice the numbers and credit official changes. New programming. Schedule adjustments. Better supervision. Maybe some of that is true. But the men living there know another part of the answer. Order exists because disorder is expensive. Chaos shuts down movement. Shutdowns disrupt visits, phones, work, store, and everything else people depend on. A stable yard is useful to almost everyone. By 37, you are no longer important because people think you can create chaos. You are important because they believe you can prevent it. That is a different kind of power, and it reaches farther. Level 9. The Institutional Advisor. You are 44. The system has noticed your influence, so they move you. Higher control, less movement, more separation, a smaller routine. Your window lets in daylight but gives you almost nothing worth looking at. Staff believe reducing your physical access will reduce your importance. At first, it does reduce your speed. It does not reduce your relevance. Questions still reach you, more slowly now. A dispute in another unit. A problem between two groups with history going back years. A younger representative who knows the current personalities, but not the reason an old agreement exists. That is where you become useful again. Not because you control every detail. You don't. You are no longer standing in the middle of the yard watching everything happen. Instead, you remember. You remember who made an agreement 15 years ago, why it was made, what happened the last time somebody ignored it, which problems look new but are actually old problems wearing new names. The younger men know the present. You carry the archive. And the smaller your physical world becomes, the more obvious that difference gets. You used to manage people. Then you managed decisions. Now you manage context. Men who once came to you for permission now come to you for perspective. That is the final transition. Because eventually, every position built on control ends. Age changes you. Transfers change the yard. New people arrive. Old people disappear. But memory has a strange advantage. It can survive all of them. Level 10. The Elder. You are 50 years old. You have been inside for more than 3 decades. You have watched young men become old men. You have watched powerful men get transferred, released, isolated, forgotten, replaced. You have watched entire generations argue over rules written by people they never met. There were years when your name could settle a problem. There were years when your position could. Now neither is the most important thing you carry. History is. Younger men sit with you because they want to know whether you have seen their problem before. Usually you have. A young prisoner named Andre comes to you one afternoon. He has a dispute with another man. He sees 2 choices. Back down and look weak. Push forward and create a bigger problem. He wants you to tell him which one to choose. You don't. Instead, you tell him about a man you knew more than 20 years earlier. different names, different unit, almost the same problem. That man also believed he had only two choices. He picked the harder one because it felt stronger in the moment. The immediate problem ended. The consequences did not. 2 years later, the decision came back around in a form he never expected. Andre listens. Then you show him what that man never saw. A third option. A way to solve the original problem without turning it into a test of pride. Andre leaves. Days later, you hear the dispute is finished. No major incident, no public humiliation, no debt waiting to become something larger. The next time you see him, he thanks you. You shake your head. Don't remember me, you tell him. Remember to look for the third option. That is when you understand what being the elder actually means. You are not the man giving the most orders. You are the man people find before they make the kind of decision they cannot undo. 6 months from now, you have another parole hearing. You have been through enough of them to know better than to build your life around the result. Still, you prepare. Certificates, work records, letters, evidence of the men you helped steer away from mistakes you made yourself. You place everything in order. Then you look down. The same type of inmate number you received at 19 is still printed on your clothes. Back then, you thought the number meant the state had replaced your identity with something easier to track. For years, maybe it did. But the number stayed the same while you changed again and again. New arrival, convict, associate, prospect, member, enforcer, representative, advisor, elder. 31 years ago, they gave you a number because institutions need simple ways to identify complicated human beings. The number is still there. It tells them exactly which file belongs to you, exactly which cell, exactly which record, exactly which man they are counting. But after everything you have survived, carried, learned, lost, and passed on, there is one thing that number can no longer tell them: who you are.